Hello there, welcome back with a new lesson of our technical maths lessons. Our lesson today 4.3. The first part of it is about the Vernier Caliper. Our objectives for this lesson is to learn how to read metric measurements on a Vernier caliper. So let us introduce the Vernier caliper for you. Usually we use a US or a metric rulers to measure any length, but these measurements are usually not so precise. So when more precise measurements are required, you must use a more precise instrument. One such instrument is the Vernier Caliper, which is used by technicians in machine shops, plant assembly lines, and many other workplaces. This instrument is a slide type measuring instrument used to take precise inside, outside, and depth measurements. It has two metric scales and two US scales. A Vernier caliper is shown in front of you. As you can see from the left, it has two large jaws and two small jaws. The large one are used to measure objects from outside. The small ones are used to measure objects from inside. And to the left, you can see the depth gauge, which is used to measure the depth. In this instrument in front of you, you can see that the metric scale on the top, and on the bottom you can see the US Vernier scale. This one is the movable one, but the fixed scale is on the beam itself, as you can see. You can watch now how can we use the Vernier caliper for measuring. To measure a length of an object, you can use the large jaws and take your reading. Check that the instrument is held perpendicular, that is, at 90 degrees to the surface of the part being measured. When measuring the diameter of a round piece, check that the full diameter is being measured. To measure the inner diameter of a hollow cylinder, you can use the small jaws. To measure the depth of a hole, you can use the depth gauge. Our lesson today is just about how to read a metric Vernier caliper in millimeters. So, let us see some examples. We will provide you with some pictures for some readings on a Vernier caliper, and we will see together how can we read these measurements in millimeters. We have here a group of 10 multiple choice questions to learn how to read a Vernier caliper in millimeters. Our first example is a reading on a Vernier caliper. This is the movable scale, and the upper one here is the fixed scale. We first look to the zero line of the movable scale. How much did it pass from the fixed scale? Every number of these is denoting how many centimeters. So the zero line here passed 2 centimeters, which is 20 millimeters, 21, 22, 23 millimeters. So we passed 23 millimeters. And also we can see that we passed a very small distance after 23 millimeters. We want to know how much is this distance by looking to the red arrow down here. So we count on the movable scale 0, 1, 2, and the arrow is pointing to the short line on the movable scale. We can see on the movable scale long lines and small lines. So every long line denotes a 10% of a millimeter. So we can see here that we have 2 long lines before the red arrow. So we have 20% of a millimeter, and the red arrow is pointing on the short line after 20. So we can say that we have 25% of a millimeter. So the final reading for this measurement is 23 full millimeters and 25% of a millimeter. Let us now check our answer. So this should be our correct answer, and it is correct. Let us see another example. As we can see, the zero line on the movable scale passed 4 centimeters, which is 40 millimeters, 41, 42. So we have full 42 millimeters. To know how much did it pass after 42, this small distance with which we can't say how much is it by our eye. So looking to the red arrow, which is pointing on the second long line on the movable scale, so we can say that we have also 20% of a millimeter. This should be our correct answer. Example 3, we passed 28. We didn't pass 29 yet. So we have 28 millimeters. And the red arrow is pointing on the 8th line of the movable scale. So we have 80% of a millimeter. So this is our reading, 28 and 80 hundredths of a millimeter. Let us check our answer. So this should be our correct answer, and it is correct. Another example, try to read this one. Do it yourself. I'll give you half a minute. Maybe you noticed that the zero line of the movable scale passed 67 millimeters. By looking to the red arrow down on the movable scale, you can see that it is pointing on the 6th line. So you also passed 60% of a millimeter. If you have this answer, you are correct in reading the measurement. Let us check our answer. 67 millimeters and 60% of a millimeter, and it is a correct answer. Now this is another example. You have half a minute to do it by yourself. If your answer is correct, it should be like this. We passed 36 full millimeters. By looking to the red arrow down on the movable scale, we can see that we passed 35% of a millimeter. Check your answer. It is a correct answer. Let us see another example similar to the exercises in the book. The upper one is a measurement in millimeters. The lower one is a measurement in US scale. But our lesson is in millimeters now, so we are interested only with the upper one. Look to the 0 of the movable scale, which is now here is the upper scale. It says that we passed 45 full millimeters. And the upper arrow is pointing on the number 2, which says that we also passed 20% of a millimeter. So our measurement should be 45.20% millimeters. Let us check our answer. It is a correct answer. Try to do this with yourself. Yes, that's correct. We passed 71 millimeters and the arrow is pointing on 70% of a millimeter. Another example, try to read it. It's clear that we passed 53 full millimeters and the arrow is pointing on 20% of a millimeter. So it is 35.20 hundredths of a millimeter. Another example, 30 full millimeters and 85% of a millimeter. A final example, as you can see here, that the 0 line of the movable scale is adjusted with the line which measures 53 millimeters for our eyes. But the red arrow down is telling us that we have a very large percent of a millimeter measured after the measurement on the fixed scale. So don't let your eyes fool you. We have only 52 full millimeters and the 0 line didn't reach really the 53 line, but we have 85% of a millimeter after 52. So our reading must be 52 and 85% of a millimeter. By this example, we reach the end of our lesson. We learned how to read a measurement in millimeters using the Vernier Caliper. See you in the next lesson.